The number of people doing business online has skyrocketed since the pandemic hit last year. So it has never been more important than now to make sure your business can be found online. Town Square can help you find more local customers with premium website services to help you grow your business faster when you visit mylocalcustomers.com. Don't wait. Visit mylocalcustomers.com today to learn more about how Town Square can help you grow your business. That's mylocalcustomers.com.
When you hear this,
they've got him again,
and this,
he scored,
and this,
oh boy, what a move by Embiid!
You think of us. We are sports. 97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Now, Sports Bash Saturday. Here's John.
Yes, Sports Bash Saturday is back on the air. 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And as always, we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. We will keep you updated throughout the day on the college football scene. Of course, we gave some of those picks out to you guys yesterday. So if you jumped on those picks yesterday, we are rocking and rolling with that moving forward. Also, I'll give you a full preview of UFC 268, NFL Sunday, all that and more still to come on the show. We'll break down the Eagles game. Also get you ready for Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Here's the lineup today at 12:25. DraftKings Sportsbook Director Johnny Avello will join us coming up at 12:25. At 1:25, USA Today lead MMA reporter for MMA Junkie John Morgan joins the show. So we got your football covered. We got your UFC 268 covered. You know, my bet of the week, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Hotel Casino in Atlantic City, is Rosenheim and Eunice plus 100 to defend her belt. So we'll give you a full rundown of the picks for tonight and Sunday a little bit later in the show. Of course, you can join the conversation. As always, text board is open. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Priority messaging, thanks to the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. You can DM the show through the app. And, of course, we are live on Twitter at 973 ESPN. And with the Eagles game tomorrow, the more I think about this game, the closer the game gets and the more the anticipation builds, the more I go back to, I have to believe, whether it's the belief is legitimate or not, I have to believe that the Philadelphia Eagles are not coached by imbeciles. I think we are very far removed in today's NFL from people like Rich Kotite being involved in sports. You know, these guys who are just these complete buffoons. So I have to believe that when the Eagles hit the field on Sunday, that we're not going to see a coach that's going to completely do the opposite of what works. So I am moving forward with the assumption that Sirianni and Gannon have learned from their mistakes. I think that you have a situation where I think it's very, very fair to say that if the Eagles do what they did last week, they can win the game on Sunday. That is the point of reference that I am working with. Now, with that being said, it's not like there are not challenges for this game tomorrow. You heard me mention just a few minutes ago on the locker room with Billy Schwein. I wrote about this at 97.3 ESPN.com yesterday. Justin Herbert is top 10 in the NFL in passing touchdowns and in passing yards per game. So for the Philadelphia Eagles, you're not facing the Lions offense. Last week, the Eagles were the better team at pretty much every position group. They were better at quarterback. Their offensive line was better. Their wide receivers were better. Their cornerbacks were better. Their defensive line was better. Maybe their running backs on paper weren't better, but they performed a lot better. That's for sure. So we know for a fact that the Eagles had more talent than the other team last week. That is not going to be the case across the board this week. When you look at the Chargers roster, you have to be honest with yourself. The Chargers are not just a better team than the Lions, but they are a team that their record doesn't tell the whole story. I know a lot of people want to point to the fact they've lost 2 in a row, but they overlook the fact that those 2 in a row losses were broken up by a bye week. So they didn't literally lose 2 in a row. They lost 1 game horribly, had a bye week, came out of the bye, and had a very, very hard-fought game against the Patriots. And in fact, a defense in the Chargers that has lost 2 in a row, I understand, supposed to be the worst rush defense in the league, gave up the 3rd fewest rushing yards on the season last week. So again, we are going to assume, based on what we saw last week, that Brandon Staley, who is a defensive-minded coach, is going to have his team prepared for the Eagles. I'm not saying they're going to stop the Eagles, but I feel pretty comfortable saying the Eagles are going to have over 230 rushing yards again this week. You look at their defense. They have talent. Linval Joseph, Joey Bosa. Their secondary has guys like Chris Harris, Asante Samuel Jr. It's not like their defense is full of a bunch of dudes who can't play football. They're having a bad year for sure, but they have talent. They have way more talent on defense than the Lions do. So part of the problem is scheme. It's not actually the players. The Lions, they were just a bad football team at certain positions. The Lions defense lacks so much talent. In fact, everyone on the Chargers team is starting on the Lions team. It's very simple. So if you're the Eagles, you can't presume or assume anything going into this game. I mentioned this last week. You break down the rosters. I think it's safe to say that the Chargers have the better quarterback. I think it's safe to say that the Chargers have the better running back. Austin Eckler is better than any of the Eagles' backs. But the Eagles have the better offensive line. For sure. 100%. The Eagles have a top 5 offensive line in the league. The Eagles have the better defensive line. I understand Joey Bosa is on the other side of the field, but after Joey Bosa and Linval Joseph, there's a talent drop-off. The linebackers are a coin flip. If you're going to tell me that TJ Edwards and Davion Teller are worse than Fackrell and Rumpf and all those guys, White, I can't rock with you there. I feel like it's a coin flip. Who's got the better linebackers? When it comes to the secondary, I think the Eagles have a better secondary because Anthony Harris is on the field. There's still that guy named Derwin James on the other side for the Chargers. As I mentioned earlier, Chris Harris, crafty veteran, Asante Samuel Jr., talent. They have corners. They have a safety, but not as much talent as the Eagles do. And then there's the tight end. You have Dallas Goedert. They have Jared Cook. Give me Goddard. Wide receiver. They have the more experience at wide receiver for sure. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. So let's break it down. Are the Chargers better than the Lions? Yes. Eagles roster versus Chargers roster. Chargers have the better quarterback, better running back, the better wide receivers. The Eagles have the better offensive lineman, the better tight end. You go to defense. Eagles have the better defensive line. I say the linebackers are one and the same, so throw that out. And I would say the Eagles have the better secondary. So the Eagles have a 4-3 edge on the Chargers in terms of the talent on the field. So realistically, as always, with this Eagles season, it comes down to the coaching. At the end of the day, if Sirianni and Gannon do their job, the Eagles can win. And I've seen Gannon's defense have more games where they have gone out there and done their job than Sirianni's group. I know the Eagles defense will show up as long as Gannon doesn't hold them back. The question is, will Sirianni do his job? That I'm not 100% sure about. Josh Hennig here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea City. Of course, you can DM the show through 97.3 ESPN mobile app. You can text us at 609-403-0973. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. We'll get to the UFC 268 stuff in the second hour. Here's a little breakdown of the Eagles this year. The Eagles defense has allowed under 20 points 4 times this year. 4 times. They've won 3 of those 4 games. The only one they lost was the 49ers game when Sirianni thought he was going to outsmart Kyle Shanahan, and hopefully Sirianni learns from that. And by the way, the Eagles, they have scored 20 or more points in every game but one for the 49ers game. So to me, the offensive scoring is a little less important right now than defense, the way this team is built. If the defense goes out there, does their job, and Sirianni stays within himself, the Eagles win. The number one key of the game is Gannon's defense has to stay aggressive. Let the Predators hunt. Let guys like Sweat and Fletcher and Hargrave, let the D-line go after the quarterback. Let the linebackers attack the ball carrier. Run after the football. Don't be passive. Don't be 10, 15, 20 yards back in a passive zone. I don't care if it's what Zimmer did. I don't care what Eberflus did. I don't care what anybody says in Jonathan Gannon's past. The way this team is constructed right now, you are not going to win games if you are going to let the offense dictate the game. You, Jonathan Gannon, have to dictate the game to them. You got to make Justin Herbert uncomfortable. You got to get after the quarterback. You got to get in his face. The Chargers, for as much talent as they have this year, only have 2 games with 30 or more points scored. 2 games. So for as much talent as the Chargers have, they're not an elite team. So they can be beat. They can be had. But it comes down to the defense. That defense has to go get Herbert in that offense. over on the text board. We'll get to that in just a bit. 609-403-0973. By the way, I'll also get to some Sixer stuff a little bit later in the show as well. Listen, this football weekend is going to be very fascinating because, as Mike Gill mentioned this week on the Sports Bash, there's a lot of teams playing that are currently sitting ahead of the Eagles. I'm not going to sit here and predict the Eagles are going to the postseason. I'm not one of those people, all right? But what I am going to say is they're contenders. Because when you look at the teams ahead of the Eagles immediately in the standings, Carolina, Minnesota, San Francisco, Atlanta. You've beaten Carolina already this year. Minnesota is a very flawed team, and I think Zimmer's time is done in Minnesota after this year, unless they make the postseason. Atlanta has a very poor defense, and they're a very flawed team, despite all the talent they have at specific positions, like the receiver positions and the quarterback. And then the 49ers just can't stay healthy. The Eagles are not out of this thing. And you have to ask the question, if you are a team like the Eagles, you have to wonder, if you are the Philadelphia Eagles, can you keep winning? I think you can. But it comes back to that defense. It always comes back to the defense for me. If you agree or disagree, let me know. Text in 609-403-0973. DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live as always on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. We'll be checking in with DraftKings Sportsbook Director Johnny Avello coming up in about 8 minutes from now. Over on the text board, Nick from Brigantine chimes in on a separate topic. Says, Josh, do you think Aaron Rodgers is getting full of himself by trying to see how far he can go and get away with things? You know, here's the thing with Rodgers. If you separate the man from what he said in the Pat McAfee interview, what he said in the interview was really not that crazy. In fact, Rodgers' explanation for not getting vaccinated makes a lot more sense than Carson Wentz's did. Rodgers put it out there. He's like, look, I have an allergy, and my doctors advised me not to take the vaccine because the lipids in the vaccine, I was worried they were going to give me a horrible side effect reaction. Okay, that's great. The problem was Rodgers kept going on and on and on. He kept talking and talking and talking. And there's a part of you that was watching or listening to it, if you watched it, the actual interview with McAfee, that reminds you of the Master of Disguise movie where he gives him the talking hand motion. He says, this is what you are doing. And then he gives him the clap down. This is what I want you to do. And the guy's, are you telling me to shut up? He says, yes. That's how it went with me. Rodgers kept talking, and he put himself to make himself sound like he's just being rebellious. I think Rodgers, in some ways, as Nick from Brigantine just said, I think there is a part of him that's trying to see how much he can get away with, because he is a player rep. So he knows the rules. He was a part of those discussions with the NFL. So if anybody knows the rules, it's Rodgers. But I think there's a part of Rodgers that's disenfranchised with his situation, that is not thrilled with where he is in his career with the Packers. And I think there's a part of the Packers that's bending over backwards to do whatever they can to make him happy. And I think Rodgers is pushing the boundaries of what he should or shouldn't do according to the rules. Rules that he was a part of negotiating as a player rep and agreed to do. So moving forward, listen, Rodgers is going to come back. Apparently he's asymptomatic. So we're grateful for that. But at the end of the day, the rules are the rules. Doesn't matter if I like it, you like it, or anybody likes it. The NFL and the NFL Player Association agreed to these rules. And Rodgers wants to push the boundaries. And it is what it is. Rodgers has put himself in this predicament. He wanted to go out and and can conduct his business this way. That's his decision. It's a free country. But when your boss and you sign an agreement saying that you're going to function under certain rules and regulations, and if something happens, then you got to live with the consequences. Dan and EHT chimes in and says the Eagles are 3-5 for a reason. Inconsistent is who they are as of now. Dan, you're right. They are inconsistent, but part of the inconsistency is the coaching. It's hard for the players to be consistent when the coach is giving them different game plans each week. You go week by week and you realize that look at the Eagles' schedule this year. Great game plan against the Falcons. Horrible offensive game plan against the 49ers. Horrible defensive game plan against the Cowboys. Poor defense, good offense against the Chiefs. Good defensive plan against the Panthers. Bad offensive plan. You lost to Tampa. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. Just throw that game out. Thursday night. And then you got Vegas. Poor offensive in-game adjustments on both sides of the ball. And then great offense and defense in the Lions game. So Dan and EHT, it's inconsistent because of the coaching to me. The coaches from week to week are, as I've said before, they're Jekyll and Hyde. The Eagles don't know what they want to be. They have no identity. They don't know what they want to be. And they're having trouble figuring out what kind of offense or defense they want to run. I mean, Gannon and Sirianni keep saying things like, oh, we adjust to our players. Well, is that really true? Heading into the weekend, Philadelphia Eagles are underdogs at home. We will talk with DraftKings Sportsbook Director Johnny Avello on the other side about his perspective on the lines this weekend, as well as the NFL and football weekend right here with yours truly, Josh Hennig, here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Here's Tyrese Maxey on the drive, underhand scoop, he got it.
The Sixers are in Chicago to face the Bulls. Coverage begins at 8 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.
PropSwap is America's marketplace to buy and sell sports bets. Check out the new PropSwap.com, which is filled with fresh features like filtering tickets based on value, browse the activity feed to stay in the know, a loyalty rewards program that turns sales into extra cash, and much more. Use promo code ODDS on your first deposit, and PropSwap will match your first deposit up to $500. PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets.
Dell Technologies' biggest business sale of the year has arrived. Step up your vision with top tech up to 45% off during their early access Black Friday event. Dell Technologies recommends Windows 11 Pro for business. Plus, get incredible savings on Windows 11 PCs, along with servers, monitors, and docks, all with free shipping. There's also special financing with Dell Business Credit. Get started by contacting your Dell Technologies advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Today on Hey Culligan, how smart is your water? Here's Tracy.
Hey Culligan, I think my water might be dumb.
Good news, Tracy. Your water's not dumb. It's just not talking to you.
You can make my water talk.
No, but the new Culligan Smart Drinking Water System can talk to your phone to tell you when your water filters need changing and help you meet drinking water goals.
Now that's some brilliant H2O.
You said it, Tracy, and we're already on the way. Let us help you out with a free in-home water test.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig back here, Sports Bash Saturday, another busy football weekend in all of our world. Of course, still coming up this afternoon, Notre Dame versus Navy coming up at 2:30 p.m. Sixers basketball at 8 p.m. tonight versus the Bulls here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Tomorrow, the Eagles are back in action versus the Chargers. Coverage begins at 3 p.m. And, of course, after that, Sunday Night Football, Titans and Rams, all here on your home for Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, the NFL, and more. 97.3 ESPN FM. To get more into the busy football weekend, DraftKings Sportsbook Director Johnny Avello joins us right now on 97.3 ESPN. Johnny, good to catch up with you again. How you doing?
Hey, Josh, I'm doing really well. Thank you.
You know, one of the things that's interesting about every football season is a comment that I heard someone else bring up earlier this week, which is, you know, football is such a week-to-week proposition, and it's wild to see the ebb and flow of a season. And even a team like for the Eagles, they're like Jekyll and Hyde. 1 week they're good, 1 week they're bad. I mean, I know last week a lot of public money was coming in on the Lions, and the Eagles go and blow out the Lions. And it seems like nobody fully knows who some of these teams are from week to week.
You know, Josh, that's a good point because, MLB teams and NBA teams and NHL teams play, 3 to 4 times a week. And so they get this momentum going that they can carry for a few days. But in football, it's a whole week that you play, and sometimes it's longer. Sometimes it's, 10 days or so. And, any momentum you had, you might lose. So, that's the difference between, football teams and the other sports.
Has there been a team or a storyline that has been a surprise for you so far this football season?
Well, I think the Cowboys are a surprise because, we expected them to be better. Of course, when the Dak Prescott is the quarterback, you would think, the team's going to do better than they did the previous year when they didn't have him. But, they're covering the spread. They're winning. And for the bettors, their bettors are getting a return that have been sticking with this team. And it looks like the NFC East is over, doesn't it? I don't know who else is going to contend with this team.
Oh, it's definitely over at this point. I feel like anybody, because I know before the season, even the Cowboys were still plus 100 odds over at DraftKings. And if somebody put money on the Cowboys, it looks like that's sure money at this point, because you're right. The rest of the NFC East, the Eagles are Jekyll and Hyde. The Giants are a dumpster fire. And Washington just suddenly can't play defense.
Yeah, ouch. That Giant team is, I grew up in New York, lived here the first 25 years of my life, and the Giants were pounded in my head. So if there is a team I root for, it's them. So when you say dumpster, ouch, Josh.
Well, Johnny, let me ask you about the Giants then real quick, because listen, you mentioned they were pounding in your head, but this team is very far removed from the Parcells teams and the Coughlin teams. Even, Fossils team went to Super Bowl. I mean, those teams, you knew what you're getting from week to week. Joe Judge does a nice little speech at the podium and when he's on the practice field, but it seems like the guys on the field, I mean, I don't know if they don't have enough talent. I don't know if the coach doesn't know what they're doing. It just feels like the Giants create ways to lose games they should win, like the Chiefs game.
Well, when you put it that way, that's exactly what the Giants were made of. They used to create ways to win games, their defense. Their defense was always amazing. Regardless if the offense showed up that week, you'd have a rough time, scoring more than 2.5 touchdowns against them. That's not the Giant team of today. So, they're weak offensively and they're weak defensively, and they just don't have a good team all around. So, for the Giants to get back to where they once were, I think we have to get back to the basics, and the basics for the Giants has always been D.
Johnny Avello, DraftKings Sportsbook Director, joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. You mentioned the Cowboys earlier. I want to hit back on them again real quick. They're starting to turn more and more into a team that people are looking at as a potential Super Bowl contender. But I have trouble wrapping my head around that because of the fact that I feel like the Cowboys are going to find a way to not get there at this point. And I see look at teams like Brady and Tampa. I look at a team like the Rams, how well they're playing. They just got Von Miller. And I just feel like there are other teams that I would personally feel more comfortable, running with. Do you feel the Cowboys are a legitimate Super Bowl team?
I do not. I do. Of course, they're a playoff team. Here's the problem I see with the Cowboys is Elliott. If Elliott was running the football for 80 to 120 yards a game, that team would be that much better because Dak's actually doing this without Elliott being able to run the football consistently. So this is the Dak team. And so if you shut down Dak, you shut them down completely. So you need everything working for you when it comes to playoff time. And teams will key on your weaknesses. You mentioned a couple teams. One team not to leave out of the mix, and never leave him out of the mix because the quarterback, you and I could play wide receiver, and that's the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is a winner. He loves the dramatics, loves to bring his team from behind, which means they're always in a game to the very end.
Yeah, the good news with Rodgers is he's asymptomatic. So, when he comes back from his COVID sabbatical, he should be good to go. And you mentioned the Packers. Listen, they're a team that people are talking about that could get Odell Beckham potentially when he gets released. What kind of impact can Odell have on some of these races? Because, listen, the Saints, Michael Thomas is done for the year, so Odell could maybe go there. He could go to Green Bay and team up with Devontae Adams. Could Odell be a guy that maybe swings the pendulum here?
I don't think he's going to the Packers because he might, but I just don't see that as a fit. I think the teams that need him the most are the Saints, you mentioned it, and the Raiders. The Raiders lost Ruggs, so they could use a wide receiver right now. So I would say it's one of those two. If he went to the Packers, I would be surprised.
Johnny, DraftKings Sportsbook, they're known for the color green. Well, in our area, the color green is also Philadelphia Eagles Association. So I got to ask you about the Eagles. It seems like more often than not in recent weeks, when the Eagles win, the public money is going to the other team. We saw that last week with the Lions, so like a few weeks ago with Carolina. Is this a situation where if we see the public money going against the Eagles, we have to run with the Eagles? Or are the Eagles just so untrustworthy at this point, it's just a flip of a coin?
Well, I'll say one thing about the Eagles. When they played the Raiders a few weeks ago, I went to that game because, I live in Las Vegas, and there were a lot of Eagles fans showed up. I went to 2 Raiders games this year. The first was the Ravens, and there was very little purple in the stadium. But at the Eagles game, it was a lot of green, so the fans are still faithful to that team. They didn't play well that day. But, they're one of those teams that, they have good weeks and they don't have good weeks. This week, they opened up a 3.5-point underdog. That game is down to 2. So the faithful and the Eagle backers this week feel that home field advantage means something here, and taking anything over a field goal is value. Now, the game's down to 2. That's quite a move from 3.5 to 2. So they're always capable. Will this team get the job done long term with its chemistry it has and the players in those positions? It will not. There needs to be some major changes, for them to move up a couple rungs. But hey, look, they're still a fun team to watch, and the faithful always going to be behind them.
It's also interesting you mentioned the home field. The Eagles have not won any games at home this year. All their wins are on the road, 3 road wins. I mean, how strange is that to have a team, when you're looking at the numbers and the lines and all these things, and you see a team like the Eagles and it's like 0 home wins, and you're like, wait a minute, Lincoln Financial Field, you mentioned the Eagle fans are loyal, they're dedicated, they're passionate, but the team hasn't won a game at home.
I usually look at it as just an aberration, and I'll tell you why. There are years where a lot of teams don't play well at home but play well on the road. But the next year, things kind of level out. So when I see it for 2 years in a row, that's when I kind of run with it a little bit, but it's rare that it ever happens 2 in a row.
DraftKings Sportsbook Director Johnny Avello joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. Johnny, speaking of lines, the Chiefs almost never cover the spread. How weird is it to have a team with that kind of talent and that quarterback and that head coach? And it seems like almost every single week they can never cover the number.
Boy, if you watch this team at the beginning of the game, they usually get the ball. When they first get the ball, they sprint down the field and they score. And then after that, I don't know what happens to them. They seem to move the ball between the 20s, but they stop scoring. Yeah, I think it's mental right now. I really do. It's the team still has a lot of key parts, a lot of great players. It's just that, and their defense has improved some. It's been a weak defense though for maybe the first 7 games of the year. And I think they'll get better. They're working on that piece. It's like everything else in life, Josh. Things get in your head, and it's like a golf game. You're playing golf, and all of a sudden you start shanking a few, and you don't know how to get out of it.
Every week, everybody listens to me knows how much I love football weekends. I'm all locked in on Saturday. I'm all locked in. I got a game back here. I got the North Carolina Wake Forest game. But Johnny, to me, the biggest difference between the NFL and college this year is that the NFL seems to be more ripe for upsets than I really remember them being in the past. I mean, the Jets have won 2 games and nobody expected them to win. Whereas college football, it feels like it's actually been less upsets this year than the NFL.
Yeah, there's been quite a few upsets in college also, but they are quite different. They are quite different for an odds maker, I can tell you that. They're, pro football teams' power ratings adjust slightly when we get, week 7, week 8, and college are still adjusting more aggressively. When you look at the NFL this year, you've got teams like Texans and Dolphins are both 1-7, the Jags 1-6. There's just a lot of teams that don't have wins. And so when those teams do play a good game, the point spreads are so high that when those teams do play a good game, they don't win, but they get the cover. So it's pro football is a little unbalanced this year. College is playing a lot to form, but there's you take those top 3 out of the mix. Your Georgia, Alabama's, you're in Oklahoma's. You've got just a wide open group below that.
You mentioned the power rating. Is there a team that's really swung a lot in terms of your evaluation on the college side this year?
Yeah. How about a Clemson? They were very high at the beginning of the year, and now they're down there with the Miami, Florida. So they're not down that far, but just a couple of points ahead of them. Yeah, they have been able to score. Very unusual year for a Clemson team that's just competitive every game. This team is just struggling. So that's one of the bigger moves of the season.
In college football, Johnny, I always try to find a team that I kind of latch onto almost every week. And this year for me, it's been Michigan State. How impressed have you been with this team? Because I think a lot of people didn't realize the job that Mel Tucker has done changing the culture there.
I'm not that impressed with him, Josh. And I'm impressed that what this team has done as far as winning football games and getting to, where they are with the record. But, the big win was Michigan. I think they'll have a rough time today. And they have a few rough games coming up after this. So they're not going to go undefeated. They may even have a couple losses by the time the season's over. It's been a great season. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking the team. It's just that, I'm not handing them the national championship.
Oh, for sure. You mentioned the Purdue game, and Purdue feels like they're just knock off top 10 teams almost every year. I mean, they're like giant killers.
Yeah, Purdue's actually, been in a lot of games this year, and their record should probably be better than what it is now. With all that being said, they could get down early in this game and it'll be lights out. But I'm sure they're looking forward to an undefeated team coming to town. And the crowd should be pretty fired up. We'll see how this one goes today. It has the makings to be a close game, a good one.
Johnny, before I let you go, always appreciate you jumping on and having the conversation. Moving forward in the football season, either college or the NFL, is there a team that excites you the most to keep an eye on the rest of the way?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Excites me. I'll tell you what, Josh, I'm not that excited just per team. I remember one time when I was at the Del Mar racetrack and I was introduced to Bud Black, and he was the coach of the Padres. So Bud said to me, "Hey, Johnny, are you a Padre fan?" And what I said to Bud was, "Hey, Bud, I'm a fan of whoever the house needs tonight." So it's hard for me to get wrapped up around any teams to actually be devoted to.
He's Johnny Avello, DraftKings Sportsbook Director, of course. DraftKings Sportsbook, sportsbook.draftkings.com. Of course, you can download the app. I personally think the app is very user-friendly, so I prefer that to the website, me personally, but that's just my opinion. Johnny, always appreciate you jumping on in the conversation. Enjoy the football weekend.
Hey, thanks a lot, Josh. Great weekend to you and the listeners.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We will get back to those listeners that Johnny just mentioned. We got messages coming in on the text board at 609-403-0973. Also, as we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. And, of course, the 973 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. With all your messages coming up next, Eagles, football, NFL. We're keeping an eye on this North Carolina Wake Forest game. We expect it to be high scoring. Well, North Carolina just scored another touchdown. So right now they are on their way. It's only the first quarter, and we have a total of 24 points. If you do a little math here, 24 times 4 quarters, you know what that hits? The over. I'm Josh Hennig, hanging out with you here on 97.3 ESPN.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. It's week 9 of the 2021 season with the Eagles hosting the LA Chargers at the Link.
Pushes, shoves, into the end zone, Boston Scott.
Pre-game coverage begins tomorrow at 3 p.m. Maryland Mike call all the action starting at 4:05. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station. Chickies and Pete's, your favorite local sports bar, home of the best in-game experience. Go where the players go. Catch all the action at all Chickies and Pete's all season long. Live football shows and Eagles pep rallies in South Philly. Every Monday, the Brandon Graham Show. Plus the Chickies and Pete's Players Lounge with Miles Sanders or Darius Slay. Chickies and Pete's is a proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles and the official caterer of Eagles training camp and the First Trust Bank Club at Lincoln Financial Field. Go where the players go. Head to chickiesandpete's.com for the full schedule. College football Saturdays at Chickies and Pete's are on. Chickies and Pete's, your favorite local sports bar. Enjoy the college football $5 game day menu every Saturday starting at 11 a.m. World famous crab fries, tasty roast pork sandwiches, Chickies boneless wings, and more. Plus Coors Light and Blue Moon ice cold draft beer specials every college football Saturday at all Chickies and Pete's. Chickies and Pete's is a proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles and the official caterer of Eagles training camp and the First Trust Bank Club at Lincoln Financial Field. This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig back here on Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN FM. Of course, we are live at 973 ESPN on YouTube and Twitter. And, of course, you can DM the show and listen to the show anywhere you go on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. We will get back to your thoughts and comments all over the platforms here in just a moment. By the way, fun conversation with Johnny Avello. I like the fact he didn't agree with me about everything. You know, I make a couple comments. He's like, I don't know if I agree about that. And I was like, all right, that's cool. Johnny's a fun guy. You know, Johnny's one of those guys where he is the guy who sets the lines for the sports book. He's been doing that for different sports books for decades, but he's still a football fan. So it's fun to have a conversation with a guy who's not just, you know, locked into only, you know, the lines. Because he said, listen, it's my job to root for the book to win, but I still want to see good football. You know, so I love that he's able to have that kind of balance when he looks at sports. Over on the text board, we'll get to that before we get to the messages at 973 ESP on YouTube and Twitter. Danny HT chimes in and says, Patriots game plan week to week has always been versatile. They changed from a 4-3 to a 3-4 to a cover zone. They do everything. That's who they've been. And that's how they became a dynasty offensively. The same thing, 200 rushing yards one week, 400 passing yards. Next, versatility is made what the Eagles staff wants to be. Well, to me, versatile is different than Jekyll and Hyde, okay? Versatile means you're flexible. There is an inflexibility that we have seen from Sirianni and Gannon at times. Again, you go back to the 49ers game. Sirianni was so dead set on trying to do certain things that it doomed them. They should have won that game, honestly. They should have won the 49ers game. The defense held them to 17 points. If the Eagles would stop being so stubborn with some of those play calls, I mean, Sirianni at times really tries to force his players to do things that's outside of their skill set, whether it's the quarterback or the receivers, whatever it may be. Gannon made no adjustments in the Cowboys game. They were getting ripped apart every single drive, and he made no adjustments. Listen, Peyton and Eli Manning were making fun of the Eagles because they were like, look how stupid Gannon is. He's running the same defense, and Dak is still picking him apart. You know, I mean, you're getting made fun of on national television by two retired quarterbacks. One's in the Hall of Fame. The one might go to the Hall of Fame, right? So Gannon and Sirianni have been very stubborn this year, okay? That's different than being versatile. Versatile suggests flexibility, something that Sirianni and Gannon have not consistently shown. Now, maybe it's because they're young and inexperienced at their jobs as play callers, but I can't sit here and act like that they're even on the same level as Bill Belichick. Belichick's a freaking legend. I mean, the dude has been coaching football since the 1970s. So Belichick has developed a knowledge of how to be versatile, something that Sirianni and Gannon have not yet. So I would say Sirianni and Gannon, they may endeavor to want to be like Belichick. But let's baby step this thing first. Let's, as they said in the movie, What About Bob? Baby steps to 4 o'clock. Let's take this little steps at a time. Let's not try to make the jump to try to be like Belichick. Let's try to at first at least be the best version of Sirianni and Gannon. Okay. Over on the YouTube channel, a couple comments from Murphy Brown I wanted to get into here. First of all, I'm not going to sit here and say Howie Roseman's an idiot, okay? The guy obviously is good enough to hire Joe Douglas and these other people in the front office to help them win a Super Bowl. So he's not an idiot. But keeping Jay Jaw on the roster is pretty ridiculous. Now, it has been suggested that Jay Jaw was a guy that Lurie wanted in the draft, and he told them, he kind of overruled them in the draft room, because apparently the drafting of Jay Jaw was a very contentious issue inside the Eagles front office. So that might not be Howie keeping him. That might be the owner saying, you got to find a way to make this guy work. So when you say Howie Roseman's the problem, listen, if Howie Roseman's the problem, then the owner's the problem just as much. Howie's only here because of Jeffrey Lurie. If Jeffrey Lurie was not the owner of the Eagles, I feel pretty comfortable saying that Howie Roseman would not be the GM. I think it's that simple. I think Howie does the owner's bidding. The owner knows that Howie will do whatever he wants, within reason, obviously. And at the end of the day, that's why Howie's here. So you can hate Howie all you want, but you got to blame the owner. And listen, you sit here and say that next year Roseman will draft the defensive tackle, one of those picks. Let me tell you something. You watch college football, Kayvon Thibodeau is a defensive lineman. The dude has the potential to be better than Chase Young. He is a freak. Okay? So you can get Kayvon Thibodeau and you add him to that defensive line, you got a game changer for the next decade. So if Howie Roseman drafts Kayvon Thibodeau, if you're an Eagles fan, you should be happy. All right, more football talk and UFC 268 next on 97.3 ESPN.
Listen this Saturday to Notre Dame football on 97.3 ESPN.
Hi, Notre Dame fans. This is Paul Burmeister. Join me, Super Bowl 50 champion Ryan Harris, and host Tony Simeone this Saturday as the Irish host Navy at Notre Dame Stadium. Our coverage begins at 2:30 p.m. Eastern in the 94th meeting between these two legendary rivals. Tune in right here on your home for Notre Dame football.
It's Notre Dame football on 97.3 ESPN. We know sports.
10-5 touchdown!
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Now, Sports Bash Saturday. Here's Josh Hennig.
Second hour of Sports Bash Saturday, hanging out with you guys here in the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Yes, this is 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Listen to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill, the locker room with Billy Schwein, and yours truly, Josh Hennig. Game night during the week, all on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We're also live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Still to come on the show about 25 minutes from now. USA Today lead MMA reporter for MMA Junkie, John Morgan, joins the show coming up at 1:25. We will chat with him about UFC 268. And if you've been listening to the station throughout the week, you know that my FanDuel Sportsbook Bet of the Week presented by Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City is Rose Namajunas to defend her belt. I'll give you my full slate of picks for UFC 268 a little bit later in the show. And of course, this hour of the show being brought to you by the aforementioned FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Football season is in full swing. Basketball is hitting hard and fast. College basketball starts next week. We will have the Champions Classic, some of the action, Duke versus Kentucky, this coming Tuesday night here on 97.3 ESPN FM. So, and of course, UFC 268 tonight. So for all the action, it's time for you to experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get in on all the games you love at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. The retail sportsbook is conveniently located right off the boardwalk, featuring 5 betting windows, a large video wall, a sports ticker, 20 self-service betting kiosks, and various lounge seats. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook, only inside Bally's Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I mentioned earlier that with the football busy weekend, I'm told you guys earlier, I'm rocking with the Eagles. And, for me, it comes down to the fact that I can't accept the reality until I see it. I said last week that I couldn't accept the reality in which the Eagles were going to be consistent this year. They've been so inconsistent that I don't know who they are from week to week. But I feel like Sirianni is just not completely dense. Like I said, he's not Rich Kotite. Rich Kotite was an absolute dumpster fire. All right. That's, guys like him. I think that we have gotten to the point with NFL coaches that we don't have garbage coaches anymore. I think that NFL teams, for the most part, have learned how to evaluate coaches and players better than they used to. You don't see massive busts in the first round as much as you used to, right? You don't see coaches completely fail as much as they used to. There's a handful of guys here and there that, crash and burn. But for the most part, I feel like NFL coaching and NFL player evaluation has at least grown to a point where you're not ending up with just these horrible situations. So I don't feel like Sirianni is a Rich Kotite type of guy. I feel like Nick Sirianni is not Kotite. I think that he's more of a guy who's just still figuring it out. He's never been a full-time play caller. He's never been a head coach before. And I talked with Billy Schwein earlier on the locker room about Dick Vermeil. Billy, at this point, has had numerous guys who played for Dick Vermeil in Philadelphia. And we, as sports fans, tend to only remember the good and not the bad with certain people and situations. So we forget that when Dick Vermeil came to Philadelphia, it was, who is this young guy from California? What does he know about football? A college coach can't coach in the NFL. Why is he crying all the time? I mean, people were ripping this guy left and right all over the place. And then he's the first coach to lead into a Super Bowl appearance ever in franchise history. So when you think about it, you have a guy in Dick Vermeil who was successful despite what all the experts said. Why was he successful? Why was this guy who came to Philadelphia at a young age, straight out of college, why was he successful? Because the players bought into him. I have not heard a single player the entire time I've been working here at 97.3 ESPN with Mike Gill Show or Billy Schweim Show or any other show. There's never been a person who ever had a negative thing to say about Dick Vermeil. Vermeil was 1 year older than Sirianni when he came to Philadelphia. And his first 2 seasons were losing records. He learned from his mistakes. Now, people were much more patient back then. You had more time to figure things out back then. But Vermeil did. And they won the NFC Championship. They take that sabbatical from football. He comes back, coaches the Rams. They win a Super Bowl. Then he goes on, has a nice career in Kansas City. Not the same success he had in Philadelphia or St. Louis, but he still had a level of success. And he finished his career with a winning record almost everywhere he coached. Philadelphia, 54-47. Kansas City, 44-36. The St. Louis is a little not even because of the fact that he left St. Louis after they won the Super Bowl. He kind of felt like, I reached the mountaintop, that's it kind of thing. And then he realized he saw the coaching itch and he went to Kansas City. But if he would have stayed in St. Louis, I'm sure he would have won more games than just 22. But the point is that when Vermeil came to Philadelphia, people didn't know what to think of him. And they were losing games. And honestly, some of the games they lost, you go back and check those games, they were kind of ugly. Vermeil lost his opening week against the Cowboys 27-7. When he was on a losing streak at one point, the Eagles didn't score more than 7 points for a 4-game stretch. They lost 24-3, 26-7, 24-0, and 26-7. That's horrible. So what you're seeing from the Eagles now is really not that much different. Now, I'm not saying Sirianni is going to become Dick Vermeil, but we live in a society today where people are impatient. And I just want to see what Sirianni looks for an entire year before I label him good or bad. I'm still frustrated with him. I still get exasperated with him. I still like some of the things he says at press conferences. But like with Jalen Hurts, I want to see a full schedule of how things go. I don't know who Sirianni is yet for sure because I haven't seen him for a full season. And let's be realistic. The coaches with losing records in their first seasons all led teams to Super Bowls. Dick Vermeil, Andy Reid, Doug Peterson, all had losing records, all led teams to Super Bowls. The coaches who had winning records their first years had to be run out of town. Rich Kotite, Ray Rhodes, Chip Kelly. Again, not saying that Sirianni is Vermeil or Peterson or Reid. I'm just saying you had to be patient with those guys. You gave those guys an opportunity to figure it out. I just want to see Sirianni get the same fair shake. And the same thing with Jalen Hurts. Hurts is not a bad quarterback. But I think people are being incredibly impatient with him in a way that is very unfair. People keep telling us you got to be patient with Tua. He's had injuries. Well, Peyton Manning, he led the NFL in interceptions his first year. Well, Carson Wentz his first year, he'd have Lane Johnson for 10 games. Are we supposed to really judge him? We didn't have his full offensive line in front of him. We have made excuses for players for a very long time in sports. There's a long lineage of players who were not who they were going to be day one. Look at the Eagles' own history. Donovan McNabb, he wasn't great his first time playing football. In fact, Hurts is better than he was when they first got started. Remember Nick Foles? Before Nick Foles had that crazy year with 27-2, the year before, he had a 1-5 record with 5 interceptions and 6 touchdowns. The year after 27-2, Foles had 13 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, with a 59.8 completion percentage. But people wanted him to come back, and he won you a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that Hurts, like with Sirianni, is any of the players I'm comparing him to. But I'm just saying that there's a level of impatience in today's microwave society. Everyone wants their mac and cheese in a minute or less. Nobody wants to actually cook a meal. Nobody wants to actually let things play out. Nobody wants to be patient with people or teams or situations anymore. Everybody wants immediate satisfaction. Everybody wants, I want it and I want it now. Very rarely are players their best version of themselves day one. It doesn't matter the sport, football, basketball, hockey, baseball. Once in a lifetime legends might be great day one. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. But even Tom Brady was a glorified game manager when he won his first 3 Super Bowls. He wasn't the Tom Brady that we know now. Very rarely are players the best version of themselves. And so I just say for Nick Sirianni, for Jalen Hurts, we can be critical of them from week to week. But let's not sell the stock. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's not just forget about them out of hand just because it didn't work out at one point or another. Has Jalen Hurts been inconsistent this year? Absolutely. But so has been the play caller. There's no way that Jalen Hurts is going to the line and changing things because he's like, I'm going to show that Sirianni how smart I am. That's not going on. Okay? Yeah, people act like Hurts is working completely autonomously. Although they're probably the same people who agree with Odell Beckham Jr. that Baker Mayfield is dropping back in the pocket and looking at Odell Beckham Jr. saying, I'm not throwing him the ball. I'm going to throw it to somebody else. Maybe they're the same people. But I like to live in the real world where, I don't like to live in a fictional reality that's based on some movie that somebody saw, okay? Look, is Jalen Hurts perfect? No. Is Sirianni perfect? No. But I'm willing to see what a full season looks like. And I just ask you guys to do the same thing. We were forced to be patient with other coaches, with other players in the past. Why should we make this an exception? You can, of course, join the conversation. Priority messaging through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of CLC. Also, the text board is open at 609-403-0973. Of course, we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Dan EHC brought up the point about Belichick earlier. And listen, it's the reality is that Sirianni and Gannon are not Belichick yet. Belichick wasn't even Belichick. Go back to those Browns years. They were inconsistent. So I just preach a little patience. Another text that came in a little bit earlier on the text board at 609-403-0973 says, Josh, you need to stop. The Eagles have no wins against playoff contending teams. All of their wins were against garbage teams. If somehow they get a wild card, they will just get embarrassed. Well, I don't know if they'll get embarrassed, but sure, there's a very strong likelihood that they would get dominated. But look at the teams that they beat this year. Detroit, one of the worst teams in the league. Definitely not a playoff contender. Atlanta has almost the same record as the Eagles. Carolina is ahead of the Eagles. Right now, if the season ended, Carolina would be the 7th seed. So technically, they are a playoff contender. Now, maybe they don't fit your criteria for a playoff contender. But if the postseason ended up with the Eagles getting that 7th wild card, right now the Packers would be the 1 seed and they would have the bye. So you would play at this point in time the Cardinals, according to the current standings. They're the 2 seed. Would the Eagles be embarrassed by the Cardinals? I mean, maybe. I'm not going to sit here and act like that the Eagles have the same level of firepower, but the Cardinals defense taking a huge hit with certain injuries. Keeley to J.J. Watt, who had a huge impact on them. I don't think that the Eagles would be able to compete with them offensively, but I think that the Cardinals defense is easy enough to score on. You can only play the teams in front of you, Texter. And I got to call you Texter because you didn't leave a name. But listen, are the Eagles beating teams that are not playoff teams? Yeah, probably. But they should have beaten the 49ers. That was the game they should have won. So that's a bad loss. You lost at Dallas. Dallas is considered by some to be a Super Bowl contender. They lost an offensive shootout to the Chiefs to hit the over on the over-ending on the odds, 42-30. And the Chiefs are not exactly world beaters either. They lost to the Bucs. They're probably a Super Bowl contender. And the Raiders right now, if you were to look at playoff scenarios, the Raiders are right now the number 2 seed in the AFC. And they're in contention to win their division. So, am I supposed to condemn the Eagles for beating the teams they're supposed to? If the Eagles would have lost to the Falcons and the Panthers and the Lions, and they were 0-for right now, you'd be ripping them for not winning the games they're supposed to. So we're supposed to criticize a team for winning the games they're supposed to? Again, there's a mentality out there that it's a no-win situation for teams sometimes. You beat a team you're supposed to. Oh, they're supposed to beat them. You lose to a team that's better than you. I can't believe they lost to that team. What? Huh? What's going on here? The irrationality when it comes to the Eagles or any team or any person sometimes is kind of comical, honestly. And I try to be a rational individual. You know, I build my entire mentality when it comes to sports on trying to be as objective as humanly possible. And I don't see some of this vitriol that some other people do. Some people hate Jalen Hurts. Some people hate Nick Sirianni. Honestly, I don't hate them, but I'll criticize them. Are the Eagles a great football team? Absolutely not. But I'm not going to sit here and act like they're trash either. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Sorry, Sports Bash Saturday. Got my days mixed up here. Game Night's Monday through Friday. Sports Bash Saturdays on Saturday. I haven't done this show in a little while. I'm sorry. Bad job by me. Gotta get the show name right. Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Of course, this hour being brought to you by my friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Bet all the action and style this football season at the state-of-the-art FanDuel Sportsbook just off the boardwalk at Bally's Atlantic City. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Speaking of the action, UFC 268 is tonight. Not one, but two belts on the line, and they're both revenge fights. We'll talk with John Morgan about that from USA Today lead MMA reporter for MMA Junkie. Joins us next here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. It's week 9 of the 2021 season with the Eagles hosting the LA Chargers at the Link.
Pushes, shoves, into the end zone. Boston Scott.
Pre-game coverage begins tomorrow at 3 p.m. Maryland Mike call all the action starting at 4:05. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station.
Hey, basketball fans, celebrate the NBA's 75th anniversary season on FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can place their first bet risk-free, and if you don't win, you'll get up to $1,000 back. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, now is a perfect time to give it a shot. And with FanDuel's same-game parlay bets, there are a ton of unique and fun options to bet on, such as player point totals, the money line, over-unders, point spreads, and so much more. So see for yourself why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and sign up using promo code Hennig to get your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. That's promo code Hennig to get in on all the action with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older to play and present in New Jersey. First online real money wager only. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Are you stuck on where you should go for your next vacation destination? Atlantic City International Airport is ready to help with your next adventure. Atlantic City International Airport is now offering nonstop flights to 3 exciting new destinations. Experience the beach by day and party by night in Miami, the beautiful beaches of San Juan, or a romantic getaway in Cancun. There's an adventure fit for every traveler. Book your nonstop flight to San Juan, Miami, or Cancun today by visiting spirit.com.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig back here on 97.3 ESPN. Busy sports weekend. Of course, a lot of college football today. We're on our way to hit that over on that North Carolina Wake Forest game. It's only the second quarter. and they've already combined for 43 points. So there you go. UFC 268 today, not one but two belts are on the line. I cannot wait to see these rematches going down tonight, and also some other great fights on the card. So join us to talk about that and more right now. Joining us on the live stream on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. He is John Morgan, lead MMA reporter for USA Today, MMA Junkie. John, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm pumped up, man. You kind of laid it out, but man, this card, it just doesn't get more stacked than this. So I'm fired up for tonight.
I mean, how can you not be fired up? But I got to start with the co-main event because, I don't understand, and maybe it's because odds makers still don't understand MMA. But Rose Namajunas is again an underdog on the odds makers. And she has been winning almost every single time she's been an underdog. And I don't understand. Do people not respect her? People not understand how talented this woman is, how ferocious she can be? To me, this is like one of the easiest picks in the world to me. It's like, I understand that Zhang is training with Henry Cejudo and all that stuff. And Henry talks a good game. We all know that. Henry cuts a great promo. But Rose is still Thug Rose, John.
Yeah, we've been talking about this all week, to be honest with you. Just kind of shocked at the lines. Now, understanding the respect that odds makers would have for Zhang Weili and the betting public as well. She does have that incredible record. And if you think back to the first fight, while it was an insane highlight reel knockout for Rose Namajunas, it was a fight that we thought was going to be a lot more competitive, right? That we were excited about it because we wanted to see it play out. And I wouldn't say the result was a disappointment because it was an incredible highlight. It's been played over and over. But I think some of us still feel like we didn't really get to see that fight play out just yet, and we still want to do that. And I think that's why there's some respect there. And again, that incredible record of Zhang Weili. And now, like you said, now she's made adjustments. She said, look, I realized that opened my eyes. I need to step my game up. So I came to the United States. I trained with Henry Cejudo and a team over at Fight Ready, and maybe they're going to improve her wrestling. And I've been a little bit surprised. I've heard a lot of people say, hey, look, she's going to have a much better wrestling game this time around. And I don't know that that's that wise either. Rose Namajunas has incredible jiu-jitsu as well. So, listen, I absolutely sided with Rose Namajunas. And I think if anytime you get a chance to get a UFC champion, especially one of her caliber as an underdog, that's a pretty solid play. But I will say, I think this is going to be a more competitive matchup than the first one.
Is it possible that for Zhang Weili that Rose is like her kryptonite? Like, is Rose maybe just a bad matchup for her? Like, if Zhang fought anybody else in that division, she's winning, right? But just because it's Rose, it's like, maybe like Cormier with John Jones, right? Like, Cormier could never beat John, but he could beat everybody else.
Yeah, that's always possible, man. It's a cliche in mixed martial arts, but we say styles make fights. You know what I mean? It's the way that certain people match up. And sometimes somebody just has somebody's number. Like you said, that's a perfect example. Daniel Cormier could beat everybody else. He could fight John Jones 100 times. I'm taking John Jones all 100 times. You know what I mean? So that's what we're going to find out tonight. The first fight ended so quickly that I don't think we know that yet. I think after tonight, we will have a better understanding if that's the case or not.
You mentioned styles make fights. Well, that's the main event to me. There's no other fascinating contrast than Usman versus Covington. Covington still insists that the first fight was a fluke. He complains about how the groin shot wasn't a groin shot. He says, I slipped on a banana and all this stuff. And it's like, listen, Covington's great at cutting a promo, but Usman is a stud for a reason. And I just have trouble seeing a pathway to victory for Covington unless Kamaru has an off night right now.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I sided with Kamaru here as well in my pick, and I see a lot of the same things you do. Now, the first fight, it was a classic. Dana White says it was one of the greatest fights he's ever seen, and he's not overselling it. I mean, when you talk about the tension, the drama, because as you said, Colby Covington, he talks a lot, and he says a lot of things. He was insulting Kamaru's father at the pre-fight press conference, making things as personal as they could possibly get. And he bugs people. But Usman has dealt with that before. He's gotten through it, and he was able to finish him late in the first fight. And it does seem like Usman just continues to get better and better. I mean, that knockout of Jorge Masvidal was one of the most shocking results that we've ever seen. I mean, I think we all thought Usman was going to win the fight, but none of us thought he was going to knock him cold in the middle of the cage. His striking is getting better. He continues to improve. Now, what we have to see is, has Covington done the same thing? Now, Covington has moved his camp to MMA Masters, went away from American Top Team, which may seem like a little bit of a surprising choice when you consider how loaded that American Top Team Academy is. But he said, look, I get more, personalized training here. I get a lot more focus on me at MMA Masters, which does work for certain people. So we'll see if Covington has leveled up his game. I mean, listen, if you take all the trash talk aside and you take all the personality aside, Colby Covington is a very, very good fighter. And people don't like to give him that credit sometimes because he is just so dang annoying on the microphone. But he is a really good fighter. He's got the things that we think you need to beat Kamaru Usman. He's got pace. He's got pressure. He's got wrestling. He's got cardio. He's got all those things. But I don't know if they're better than Usman's. Usman's got all that stuff as well. And listen, it could be a competitive matchup, and I've heard a lot of people say this, and I tend to think it's possible as well. It could be a little bit more one-sided this time around than it was the first time because Kamaru Usman just continues to raise his game.
So let me ask you this. Assuming Kamaru wins, what's next for both men? Because obviously Kamaru will be the defending champ, and Kobe now would have lost twice to Kamaru. So what would be next for both men?
It's a big moment, right? It's a really, really big moment because for Colby Covington especially, you lose twice to a champ, especially if by chance, it's not controversial, if it's a finish of any kind. It's really hard to get that third matchup. This is a big night for him. If he loses here, it's going to be very difficult. He's going to have to rethink some things about potentially changing divisions, maybe waiting until Usman does something similar. It's going to be a hard road for him back to the top. So this is a huge, huge night for Colby Covington. For Usman, meanwhile, listen, he's teasing a boxing match with Canelo. I don't think that's actually going to be next for him. That's what he's saying he wants to do. I like his logic. He says, look, that scares me. That gets me excited. And it would be something we've never seen, the number one pound-for-pound MMA fighter on the planet against the number one pound-for-pound boxer. I like where he's going with that in terms of selling. I don't like his chances against Canelo in a boxing match. I don't think we're going to see that, but that's what he's throwing out there. But Usman has said, listen, I want everybody to know, like, I'm not going to do this forever. Like, going away from my daughter for 8-9 weeks at a time and living this life is hard for me. I want to be there. If I've put a lot of money in the bank already, I want to be able to enjoy that time with my daughter. And this sport takes that away from me. So I don't have a ton of performances left. So he's going to look for the biggest fights possible. Look, the UFC wants to go to Africa. Obviously, he's got Nigerian heritage. For him, Israel Adesanya, Francis Ngannou to all be on a card in the first ever UFC event in Africa would be massive. But either way, I don't think we've got a ton of fights left for Kamaru Usman. He's already established himself very well as an all-time great, as a wealthy man at this point, and he wants to spend some time with his daughter.
Listen, I understand all that, everything you just said, but I remember Kamaru, didn't he also say he wants to clear out the division? And there's two guys still in this division that I think a lot of people are curious about. One of them being Leon Edwards, the enigma that kind of hangs out there. For those who don't know, Leon Edwards is a stud, but because of COVID and a lot of other things are out of his control, he's been kind of been the bridesmaid every time. He's the guy who never gets to walk to the altar. And then you got that guy that the hardcore MMA fans are drooling over. Kamatz, he's out there. He's fun, right? Like, he's a guy that people I think would love to see against Kamaru. So to me, I think Kamaru, for him moving forward, if he wants to build that legacy, right? He could do something that the guys who have held welterweight didn't do maybe in the past. Matt Hughes had trouble doing it, right? Even, GSP, he lost to Matt Serra, had to avenge that loss, right? If Kamaru can clear out the entire division, does that put him on a whole nother stratosphere?
It does. I mean, listen, he's already done a pretty good job of it, but you bring up some names that really do matter. Leon Edwards, poor man's career has been snake bit, man. He just has the worst luck. And as you said, he's been shafted because of it. He's got a big fight coming up with Jorge Masvidal. He wins that. You got to be thinking title shot for sure. But you said Khamzat Chimaev is the hot property, right? I mean, this is the guy that came in, won 3 quick fights. Everybody was, anointing him the next great. Then he had a really bad battle with COVID-19, and it was starting to wonder. He actually talked about retiring at one point because he was having trouble getting back to his previous form. But he returned last week at UFC 267. Once again, just grabbed the spotlight. I mean, picked Li Jingliang up, slammed him down on the canvas, but before he did so, was actually talking to Dana White while carrying another man over his shoulder and saying, hey, I'll take anybody. I'll beat them all. And you can just see the smile light up on Dana White's face because he's like, oh, we got a star here. Khamzat, it's interesting because, he hasn't really earned his way to the title yet. He hasn't beat those top-tier ranked opponents, but the buzz behind him is so strong and people love him so much that, you could conceivably give him a title shot and it would sell a lot. And at the end of the day, rankings do matter, but it's really about putting on the fights that people are willing to pay money to see. And I think people would pay money to see that. And to be honest with you, if you're Kamaru Usman, I don't know if you don't take like the Floyd Mayweather route where you take guys a little too early for them. You know what I mean? And I think that's what he would do. If you got Chimaev now, it might be better while he's still a little bit green. And maybe you could exploit him because he's not used to being in 5-round fights, or he's not used to the pressure of a title situation. If you wait a little while and let this guy continue to get better, he looks like he's the real deal. So there's a couple more fights out there. Listen, the winning streak that Usman is on, if he continues it tonight, it is an incredible one. It deserves a lot of respect. He's up there close to breaking Anderson Silva's record for the most consecutive wins in the UFC. So you can't detract from what he's done. But you're right. There's always a couple more names out there, right? There's always the new kid on the block. There's always one person you didn't beat. So there's still going to be fights out there for him if he chooses to continue.
John Morgan joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN at MMA Junkie John on Twitter. Check out all of his coverage at MMAJunkie.com. UFC 268 tonight, 2 title fights. But, John, outside of title fights, a couple other interesting fights I want to hit with you real quick here. Frankie Edgar obviously is going to have home crowd interest. This guy is a stud. He's a legend. He's going to the UFC Hall of Fame. We all know that. But if he beats Vera tonight, this is an interesting conversation because after what Peter Yan just did, it makes that whole division look very, very interesting.
It really does. I'm so excited for this fight. I mean, Frankie Edgar, fighting at Madison Square Garden, just down the street from his home in New Jersey. I mean, it's going to be a supportive crowd. And as you said, he is a legend. You will not find anybody in MMA that has a bad word to say about Frankie Edgar. But he's 40 years old at this point. You know what I mean? So, it's incredible to think what he's done up to this point, accomplishing everything he's done and maintaining his level. Like, he's been elite throughout. It's not as if, he's not fighting the best every time. He still continues to do that. And Marlon Chito Vera is one of the best as well. Fast rising, a Colombian prospect. He looks like every bit, the real deal. This is a big moment. If Frankie Edgar wins this fight, I went Chito Vera here. I did. I went with Chito Vera. I do feel like, the younger, fresher, hungrier guy, all those things, the speed, it all kind of favors him. But if Frankie can wrestle him, which I think that's probably going to be the best path. I don't think he wants to stand toe-to-toe, but if he can lean on that wrestling and out-wrestle Chito, he could stake a claim here to being a contender once again and being up there at the very top of the division. And look, just the opportunity for Frankie Edgar to fight in Madison Square Garden. Come on, man. How can you not be fighting? It's going to be quite the scene tonight.
Absolutely. You and I were in Atlantic City when he fought in Atlantic City at that co-main event, and that crowd was just absolutely nuts. Like that was some of the fullest crowds I've ever seen at Boardwalk Hall in a while. And when Frankie came out for that co-main event, the place went nuts. And Madison Square Garden holds more people, and it's got even better acoustics. So I can't wait to hear how that crowd reacts tonight. The other fight on the card I'm fascinated by, and I mean, this fight's getting overlooked because it's 2 former champs here. It's Gaethje and Chandler. They're almost mirror images of each other. 2 power wrestlers with knockout power. And listen, Gaethje's got the violence. Chandler's got the tenacity. I mean, how do you measure out this fight?
This is an incredible fight. This is the one the hardcores are just salivating over, right? And it got moved to the main card opening fight, kind of as a favor for Trevor Whitman, because Trevor Whitman is coaching Justin Gaethje, Rose Namajunas, and Kamaru Usman. Those were all set to happen in order, and he was going to have head coaching duties for all of them. They said, hey, we'll move this fight to the first fight of the pay-per-view. Honestly, I think that's just going to set the tone for an amazing night because there's no way that this fight isn't absolute chaos. I mean, it's going to be absolutely nuts. These 2 dudes, as you said, powerful, aggressive, moving forward, big striking. They've got wrestling as well, but that's probably going to cancel each other out. So they're just going to be swinging away. Listen, I like Gaethje here, and I mean that is no disrespect to Michael Chandler because Michael Chandler is an absolute stud. But I just think Gaethje's just a little bit of a cut above right now. And I think he's going to claim a title shot with this win. I mean, there's some discussion about whether Islam Makhachev should have it after his performance last week. But Gaethje's been right there. And the only losses of late, of course, to Khabib Nurmagomedov. But everybody lost to Khabib before he retired. Right. Gaethje's right there. I think he's fighting for a title shot. I think this is chaos. It's only 3 rounds. It's not a 5-rounder. I don't think it goes 3 rounds. I think, 1 round might be enough. Maybe we go into the second. But it's going to set the tone with some action right out of the gate for sure.
Yeah, it's a don't blink fight for sure. John, one more before I let you go. You put out on Twitter the other day that this will be the fourth highest gate of any kind at Madison Square Garden for the UFC. They now hold 2 of the 4 largest gates at Madison Square Garden. John, just give a little context to that, because it was just 20 years ago, people were wondering what the heck is happening to MMA and the UFC, and who are the Fertitta brothers, who is this dude Dana White with? He needs to shave that head. People had all this crazy stuff to say about it. And now 21 years later, it's like, this is a legitimate thing now, and people are salivating. I mean, I get people who literally message me on Twitter and during the show. They're like, where are the UFC picks? Where are the UFC talk? Like, people are, they're salivating for this now. So just talk about what it means for MMA and for the UFC to be in this category now.
It's an absolute juggernaut. I mean, it's an absolute powerhouse. Obviously, the partnership with ESPN is just taking things even to another level, because now it's getting even more coverage, more attention. It's phenomenal. And it's an astounding rise. I happened to latch onto the sport very early. The first UFC event I ever attended was UFC 16 in the very, very early days. And I thought it was an amazing sport. But even I didn't see that it was ever going to be this, entity that it is today. I mean, and you think about what you're talking about. I mean, the popularity is global. It's not just here in the United States. I think in terms of, American exported sports, it's up there with any of them in terms of popularity around the globe, that it appeals to markets all over the planet, and they got TV deals everywhere. It's a huge thing. The popularity of the sport just continues to rise. And I think for good reason. And you think about, New York was so hesitant to legalize mixed martial arts. It was the last state in the United States to make it legal to attend there. And now, in that short time, to already have 2 of the 4 top gates in the history of Madison Square Garden, the iconic venue that it is, that has hosted, every top sporting event, every top entertainment act, I mean, you know what I mean? It's just, it is the world's most famous arena. And for the UFC to have those 2 gate records just goes to show you that this brand is just continues to rise and continues to get bigger and bigger every day. I mean, even during this pandemic, which is, don't even get me started on what the last year and a half has been like, but to see the popularity even rise during that, man, it's been absolutely unbelievable. So it's been a heck of a ride for the UFC. And listen, Dana White does not plan on slowing down at all. He continues to want to grow this thing. He wants to make it the most popular sport on the planet. Gonna be tough to make it number 1, but I love that the guy at the helm wants to do it that way and doesn't have visions of anything less.
Well, hopefully they can get back to UFC fight nights again. They're not at the apex, because that, to me, is the next step to getting them back to some sort of normalcy. And hopefully, in our backyard, Atlantic City will be in those plans, and we'll see John Morgan down back in Atlantic City again. So
that's right. Hey, I'll be there in December. I'm going to be there in December for Cage Fury Fighting Championships at the Hard Rock in Atlantic City. So I'm looking forward to that, man. I haven't been in Atlantic City in a while.
There you go. Follow him on Twitter at MMA Junkie. All the coverage at MMAJunkie.com, not just of the UFC, but all of mixed martial arts. They got you covered all year long. And John joined us here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. John, always good to see you and chat with you. We'll catch up soon.
Always a pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN in the Matt Black Kia Studios. Yeah, UFC 268, not 1, but 2 title fights tonight. I'll be watching. I hope you are watching too. And we'll give you the full slate of picks on the other side, presented by FanDuel Sportsbooks. We are at the halfway of the NFL season, and FanDuel Sportsbook wants you get the most out of every game, and that's why they're giving everyone a $10 risk-free bet each week. All you have to do is make a same-game parlay bet with 3 legs or more. And if your bet doesn't win, FanDuel will pay you back up to $10. There's no feeling like hitting a same-game parlay bet. So lock in your bet today on FanDuel Sportsbook. Get up to $10 back if your bet doesn't win. If you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook, sign up today with my promo code Hennig to also receive 30-1 odds on either team to win during Sunday afternoon's matchup between Green Bay and Kansas City. And with Green Bay with no Rodgers, betting on Kansas City with 31 odds feels like a pretty safe bet. Win $150 on a $5 bet with promo code Hennig exclusively on FanDuel, the #1 rated sportsbook app in America. Must be 21 or older to play and present in New Jersey. Refund issued non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Same game parlay available for multiple sports in all states on mobile or web. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We'll wrap up the show, give you the picks next here on 97.3 ESPN.
Listen this Saturday to Notre Dame football on 97.3 ESPN.
Hi, Notre Dame fans. This is Paul Burmeister. Join me, Super Bowl 50 champion Ryan Harris, and host Tony Simeone this Saturday as the Irish host Navy at Notre Dame Stadium. Our coverage begins at 2:30 p.m. Eastern in the 94th meeting between these two legendary rivals. Tune in right here on your home for Notre Dame football.
It's Notre Dame football on 97.3 ESPN.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
All right, wrapping up the show here, Josh Hennig live. Yes, the Matt Blatt Kia Studios on 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank CLC. Want to squeeze in a message for the end of the show? You can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. You can text it at 609-403-0973. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. I'm actually still waiting for this game to come out of timeout, but Wake Forest, North Carolina is going very, very well for our over pick right now. So hopefully that keeps up. So we got one winner in the bank heading into tonight's action. Listen, speaking of heading into tonight's action, listen, it's one of those deals where UFC 268, it's arguably one of the biggest cards of the year. It's at least the biggest card thus far overall in terms of stacked. And it's hard to say because there's been a lot of stacked cards this year. But a couple of the picks that I'm rocking and rolling with right now. Listen, I told you guys all week, I'm riding with Rose. She's plus 102 right now over at FanDuel Sportsbook. She was plus 100 yesterday. I'm still rocking with it. I can't see a scenario where Zhang Weili beats her, honestly. And no offense to Zhang Weili. I know she's a former champion. I know she's been training with Henry Cejudo, but I just feel like Rose is on a whole nother level right now. And like I told John, I just think certain fighters can't beat certain fighters. Styles make fights, and styles change the dynamic of those fights. So to me, I think that Rose has all the answers to Zhang Weili. So I got Rose tonight, and if you want to throw a parlay together, Rose combined with Kamaru Usman, that's plus 169 odds. Nice little value there. If you want to throw in Justin Gaethje, who I also think will win tonight, that's plus 294. Listen, I think that Justin wins. I love Michael Chandler. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch fight, but I also love watching Gaethje. And I just feel like Gaethje's aggression will force the action. And these are two high-level wrestlers. I think their wrestling, for the most part, will neutralize each other. And I think Gaethje will coerce Chandler into a brawl. And when he coerces him into that brawl, it'll be game over. I think Gaethje is just, at this point, the better striker. I think Chandler lost his shot at the UFC title. And I don't think Gaethje is the guy that he's going to be able to beat right now. I also like Frankie Edgar at plus 134 tonight. Listen, it's not just because I like Frankie because he's a good dude, but I also think that I don't think Chico Vera is ready for this step yet, and I think Frankie still got one more run in him. And I think with the status of that division at featherweight, I just feel like Frankie still has one more run in him. And I look at the Aljamain Sterling situation. I look at the Peter Yan just crushing Sandhagen. I think that the division is still open for Frankie to make one more run before he retires. And I think a lot of people, there's a handful of fights that people love to see him fight. And I think that after Frankie wins tonight, I think Frankie's got a couple options. I know he lost to Sandhagen. That was a tough loss. But I think that there's a couple fights out there that are still to be made for him. I think that he would love to have a rematch with the Korean Zombie. I think Frankie would love to stay at featherweight and keep fighting to get another shot at the belt. But if Henry Cejudo is serious about coming back and fighting Volkanovski, Volkanovski, then I think Cejudo should fight Frankie. That'd be a huge money fight. I think a lot of people would tune in for that. A couple more picks for the weekend that I'm liking right now. For UFC tonight, I love Ally Aquinta. I don't know why he's an underdog. This is in front of his home crowd in New York. Remember the last time he fought in New York, he gave Khabib Nurmagomedov a huge, massive war. And Khabib says to this day that his toughest fight ever was against Ally Aquinta. Tells you how talented this dude is. And I don't know if Bobby Green knows what's going to hit him. I think Al wins that fight tonight. NFL picks for tomorrow. I like I told you, I like the Eagles at home. I would go as far to say don't even mess with the spread. Just go money line 106. I like Kansas City to cover. I just don't think Jordan Love and the Packers will be able to keep up with Kansas City in Kansas City. Another number I like the over in the Falcons Saints. I know that Trevor Siemian is starting, but it's not like the Falcons have a very good defense. And I understand the Saints defense is pretty good, but I think the Falcons have shown a history to be able to score on the Saints. I like the over 41.5 in that game. And I'll give you guys one more pick. I think the Cowboys covered the spread. I think they win by at least 10. It's 9.5 on the spread, but I think they cover 10. Denver doesn't have the firepower. They don't have the ability to keep up with Dallas' offense. So I really like the Cowboys there. So those are some picks for you for the weekend. Make sure you give me a follow on Twitter at Josh Hennig. I'll be giving you my thoughts and comments on the college football, the UFC 268, and the NFL all weekend long. I'll be back on Monday at 6 p.m. for game night on 97.3 ESPN following Mike Gill and the Sports Bash. Tomorrow, Billy Schwein, the locker room, Billy Schwein, Pete Thompson hanging out with you. Then Eagles football tomorrow. Coverage begins at 3 p.m. right here at your home for Eagles football. 97.3 ESPN FM. And make sure to download the 97.3 ESPN mobile app for your coverage of Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, Flyers, and high school sports and the high school athlete of the week. That article will be up there this upcoming week for you to vote on. I'm Josh Hennig. Have a great weekend.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Here's Tyrese Maxey on the drive, underhand scoop, he got it.
The Sixers are in Chicago to face the Bulls. Coverage begins at 8 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.